I know a lot of you are waiting to hear from Ted. So Ted, thank you for being here. The floor is yours, brother. Let me stop sharing.
Oh, and before he starts, can I just wish Ted a very happy birthday? It's his birthday today. I would have baked a cake, but you know,
Happy birthday, Ted.
I don't even have a candle.
Thanks, Barbara. Well, glad you made it back from the western part of Canada.
The West Coast.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see a lot of faces here, so many of which I recognize. Hey, Richard. Hey, Craig. Hey, Barbara. Hey, David. Hey, many of you. Hey, Al. Hi. Tanner and Jean, thanks for having me on today. It's good to be here, and for me, it's something fun to do on my birthday, believe it or not. So here,
9/11's fun, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah. As you know, the reason I'm here today is because I wanted to talk about an organization that I'm helping to launch that's going to be launching in the next few days. It's called the International Center for 9/11 Justice. It is actually a relaunch of an organization that's been in existence in the 9/11 Truth Movement since 2008. It's the International Center for 9/11 Studies that James Gorley founded. Probably most of you are familiar with James. He co-authored and authored several scientific papers back in the first 10 years after 9/11. He founded this organization, which, among other things, hosted the Toronto hearings in 2011. James edited the 9/11 Toronto report, and he's done several other things over the years.
He liberated a bunch of FOIAs too. That was impressive.
He did, yeah. He successfully executed several FOIA requests and a lawsuit against NIST, which resulted in NIST releasing thousands, perhaps maybe 10, 20,000 plus photos, videos, and so on that had not been released that NIST gathered during its investigation. So yeah, that organization's been in existence since 2008. Fairly dormant since the release of the Toronto report back in 2012. And as Sandra mentioned in the email, I'm no longer with 8/9/11 Truth. I left in January, and from that point started working to put together this organization. I sensed at that point in time, and this is still the case, that and I think this was really accentuated by the passing of David Ray Griffin in November of last year, and knowing that Graham McQueen was also not well and didn't have a lot of time left. I had the feeling that there was a lot of, as we all know, really powerful, important evidence that the 9/11 Truth Movement has produced over the past 2 decades, and that we were reaching a point where a lot of that information really needs to be consolidated. And I mean, it's out there, it's on the internet, but people really have to dig to find it to some extent. The powers that be have in many cases made it harder to find. And so one of the needs that I felt existed was to pull together more information and consolidate it in one place and do a really good job of presenting that information and making it easier for people to find it on the internet through good web design and so on. And so, I approached James and the other members of the International Center for 9/11 Studies, the other board members, which at that time were Graham McQueen and David Chandler. And I also approached Kevin Ryan and Elizabeth Woodworth about partnering the International Center for 9/11 Studies with the Journal of 9/11 Studies and with the 9/11 Consensus Panel. Now, as we all know, the 9/11, well, we may not know, but many of us know the 9/11 Consensus Panel has finished its work. I think it concluded in 2017 or 2018. And Elizabeth and David Ray Griffin published 9/11 Unmasked, summarizing the 51 consensus points that the 9/11 Consensus Panel had published over the years. But the Journal of 9/11 Studies, although it hasn't published a lot over the last 5 to 6 years, is still in existence. And so aside from trying to pull the content of these three organizations together, I said we can reboot the Journal of 9/11 Studies and make that a centerpiece, a place where people go to publish their research in the 9/11 Truth Movement. So what we've done is formally tied these three organizations together under the banner of what is now called the International Center for 9/11 Justice. It used to be the International Center for 9/11 Studies. It is a 501c3 nonprofit. And we are going to feature all of this work on one website under the banner of the International Center for 9/11 Justice, as well as the work that many others and many other organizations, groups, individuals have done over the years. We have this entire section of, well, there's papers, essays, books, etc. There's also films and videos, short videos, presentations. There are sections of the website that feature a lot of that other stuff as well. We're also, as I mentioned, with rebooting the Journal of 9/11 Studies, or bringing new life to it, looking to publish new research on a regular basis in the journal. We are going to be launching this week. We'll be publishing a new paper shortly thereafter, a paper that I co-authored together with David Chandler and Tony Zambodi about the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7. That is kind of, I like to say, like putting a bow on the research that David is largely responsible for regarding not just the free fall of Building 7, but the sudden transition to free fall, which he has refined his measurements of over the last few years, in which I helped him with, first for the request for correction that 8E911 Truth filed 3 years ago with NIST, but now in this most recent paper, we've expanded the measurements and kind of brought all the case to full fruition regarding the sudden, instantaneous transition to free fall of the entire width of Building 7, of the roof line. And we'll be publishing lots more going forward. We also have something, or creating something called a debated topics forum. The Journal of 9/11 Studies is going to focus largely on new areas that haven't been investigated as much. We would like to really shift the focus, and I want to say this is another important goal of the organization, is to start to not take the focus away from the World Trade Center, but to start to shed more light and put more resources and more focus into other aspects of 9/11 that haven't received as much attention over the years, in large part because the World Trade Center evidence is so straightforward. But we feel that other aspects of 9/11 are sort of fertile ground for there to be significant discoveries that could really advance our understanding of 9/11 and maybe provide evidentiary breakthroughs. So we'll see. One area that the journal is not going to focus on as much are topics that have been debated a lot over the years. The foremost of those, of course, is the question of what did or did not hit the Pentagon. I would like to be very clear from the outset that the organization does not have a formal position on the question of what did or did not hit the Pentagon. I mentioned that David Chandler is a board member of the organization. As many of us know, he's been very outspoken on this question, but the organization as a whole is not taking a position on it. What we do want to do, rather than continuing to sort of foster the shadow or the cloud that hangs over this question, is to allow it to be discussed and debated civilly and respectfully out in the open in what we are calling this Debated Topics Forum. Just to give you an example, I'll quickly share my screen here and give you a sneak peek of the website.
Great.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, so this is the homepage of the new website, which we'll be unveiling later this week. I'll just scroll down to give everybody a peek. It says there, 9/11 changed the course of history. By finding the truth, we can change it again. We're trying to gear this website at the simultaneously, both the people who are completely new to the issue, as well as the people, to seasoned researchers and activists. So there are sections of the website that very, clearly appeal to, like, this is information for beginners. And there are sections of the website that are deep sort of, wells of information for people who know a lot more and who are looking for more. So just scrolling down the homepage, this is what you will see. As I mentioned, we're not just looking at the World Trade Center. We are looking at all aspects of 9/11. There's no limit to the scope of what the organization will research or will talk about. So we look at, obviously, the World Trade Center is a big part of it, but not the only part. We'd like to do a lot more into the piloting of the planes as well. So you'll see this item on the homepage that addresses that. as I've already described, the organization, the three pillars of the organization are the International Center for 9/11 Justice or Studies, and by that also the Toronto hearings and the Toronto report, and the Journal of 9/11 Studies and the consensus panel. So those are the three pillars of the organization, and all of the information that those three entities have produced over the years is readily available and well presented on the website. Here's the news section. Graham McQueen was a founding member of the board of directors of this organization until his passing a month ago, a little more than a month ago. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about a project that we have going that involves him. But there's the beautiful article that Kevin Ryan wrote about Graham shortly after his passing. Who we are, family member, 9/11. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I was just Sandra. Yay! That's all.
Yes, yeah, Sandra's there. So who are we as an organization? Family members, activists, and scholars. 9/11 family members. And as you'll see here, there's a focus on both research and education, and furthering the research of the 9/11 truth movement, but also on the activism and the outreach and stuff. And so we didn't want to just be an ivory tower of researchers and scholars. The goal of the organization is to help spur lots of activism across the movement in the coming months and years. So just to switch, just to show you a little bit more, I was talking about the Debated Topics Forum. Let me switch to that here. All right, well, this is the leadership page, just to give you guys a quick look at who are the members of the board of directors and myself and the others who are steering this organization. I will be the executive director, or I am the executive director of the organization. We have the board of directors of James Gorley, who founded the center back in 2008. David Chandler, who's been on the board since, I don't know, 2011 or so.
Actually, a little before that. I don't know.
Go ahead,
Somewhere
David.
in there.
Somewhere in there? Okay. Marilyn Langlois, who's a longtime member of the Northern California 9/11 Truth Alliance, and has done a lot of good work over the years, especially in peace research and activism. Piers Robinson, who is probably many of you are familiar with, co-director of the Organization for Propaganda Studies over in Europe. He's our European outpost. Kevin Ryan, who is the editor of the Journal of 9/11 Studies, has been since 2006. Elizabeth Woodworth, who's the remaining leader of the 9/11 consensus panel. Graham will continue to be there on the page, even though he's no longer with us. We also have a 9/11 Community Advisory Committee of Bill Bernier, who's an architect who lost his best friend on 9/11 in the North Tower. Matt Campbell, who lost his brother. Many of you know Matt. And of course, Bob McIlvaine, who all of you are familiar with, who lost his son, Bobby, on 9/11. Switching to, I just want to give you a sneak peek of what, sorry, go ahead. Somebody have a question? No? Okay. This is just an example of what one of these sections of the website will look like. This is the Journal of 9/11 Studies. There you go. It's all 150 articles and letters that the journal has published will be there. These are just some of the top recommended articles. If people only have time to read 10 articles, these are the 10 that we think they should read. Mm-hmm. And finally, the Debated Topics Forum that I was getting to. This is just an example of what that will look like. I'll just read from it. The Debated Topics Forum is a venue for constructive, evidence-based discussions about long-debated questions in the 9/11 research community. The forum is designed to allow for lightly moderated, free-flowing discussion of contentious topics in a respectful and transparent space. We invite researchers who are passionate about their point of view to submit papers to the forum. It is our hope that the forum will serve as a platform for genuine scholarly debate that produces major advances in our understanding of the 9/11 crimes. Nice. So the idea of the forum partly is to really, whereas the Journal of 9/11 Studies is peer-reviewed and has 2 reviewers look at every paper in addition to the editor, the threshold for publishing the Debated Topics Forum is lower. We don't want to be refereeing the papers that are published there. We just want to make sure that they're written in a civil manner and that they make coherent arguments based on evidence. So that's the goal of the forum. We have a number of major projects that are coming up in the short term. We're working on a film that is based on an interview with Graham McQueen that I did with him last October. up in Hamilton, Ontario. And it's the film is called Peace, War, and 9/11. We will be releasing a trailer for the film in the next week or so. It's going to be a feature-length documentary that basically features Graham talking about his analysis of 9/11, his analysis of the anthrax attacks, and his version of what 9/11 was about, and really his core mission in life which was the abolition of war. So that is the film. As I said, we're also getting the Journal of 9/11 Studies going again. We will be publishing. We also, some of the projects that I was working on at AE 9/11 Truth, the center is it has inherited. So one of those is the Campbell family, Matt Campbell and his family's attempt to get a new inquest into the death of Jeff Campbell. The center will be supporting that initiative going forward. The other is an ethics complaint brought by Tony Zambodi and Richard Johns, who wrote a discussion paper about in response to a paper that was published by Zdenek Bizant back in 2011 in the Journal of Engineering Mechanics. That ethics complaint has been going on. That process has been going on for almost 5 years, and we'll be reaching a resolution in July when we go before the executive committee of the American Society of Civil Engineers and try to show that the editors of the Journal of Engineering Mechanics violated the ASCE Code of Ethics when they rejected John and Tony's paper as being out of scope. And if we're successful, it would mean actually getting their paper published finally. 10 years after it was rejected, 12 years after it was submitted. But it's an important paper that needs to see the light of day in the Journal of Engineering Mechanics. So that's another project that the center is working on. And we have
just for clarification for everybody, if I may. So that is separate from the request for correction, which AE 9/11 Truth is still pursuing litigation for, but
yes,
that's still equally as important.
Yes, yeah. So the request for correction is a project of AE 9/11 Truth. They're the lead requester in that, and so I don't know exactly where that litigation stands. Somebody from AE or Mick Harrison could speak to that. But the center is essentially representing Tony Zambodi and Richard Johns in their ethics complaint against the ASCE editors who rejected their paper back in 2013.
Thank you.
Welcome to the War Room, a weekly roundtable discussion that takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in at 911warroom.com/Zoom.